Before you ask anybody, any of our members questions, like
I forget to hit record, and we record these because of the people that are in our group. A lot of them are on vacation and stuff in the summer. They can go into the private space and actually grab the video and watch the video. And I know they've been watching them, so they can see how many times they've been viewed. But welcome everybody. So glad everybody is here. Who here has used Liscio? Liscio, good Lord, because I did a webinar on that yesterday. Who's used LeanLaw?
Get your L's right.
Who's used LeanLaw for their clients?
I know Tanya has. Steve, have you?
A little tiny bit.
No, I started out with it and didn't get too far.
Okay.
It's a long story, but I still want to.
Okay. Cool.
How long ago? Because it's changed a lot.
About a year ago.
Okay, a year ago.
Okay.
Well, in my opinion, we'll argue this till we're dead, Sarah. My opinion, the best software that works with QuickBooks.
Yeah. Oh,
The best, hands down.
yes, of course. Like all the different ways it works. Yes. You're funny.
For my opinion. So that's my opinion. But I mean, there's no perfect software. I tell my clients that all the time. Look, there's no perfect software unless you had it custom built for you and paid $20,000, $25,000. There's no perfect software. So they all have their little things, but hands down for QuickBooks connection and all that works the best. I love the clarity of all the sub ledgers, being able to see it. So if I get working in a client file, I see something negative, like, okay, what happened here? And obviously we still have a wish list, but Jonathan, if you want to give a little demo of it, and then we can get in any questions or,
Sure.
see how it works. It's very easy to use too.
Well, first, because not everyone knows it, I figured I'd just talk a little bit about it. I want to start by thanking Sarah and Linda for inviting me. I don't know if the group really understands the longstanding relationship I've had with these two women, and how much respect and appreciation both I and my company have for them. We're not here where we stand in our future without the two of them and their partnership and the voice they have given for the product to the marketplace. And I'm not just like saying that because I'm saying it because it's the truth, and I've said it before and I will continue to reinforce it. These guys have been evangelists for us, even in moments when we weren't shining, and steadfast, and my collaboration has been I'm really grateful. So it's really excited to be here with the group. And I think it was probably about 2017, I realized accounting was important to the LeanLaw model. So I'm the founder and chief operating officer of LeanLaw. I'll take a step back and make sure everyone understands the company. We are a timekeeping and billing and invoicing platform with deep integration to QuickBooks Online. We're a professional services solution with a specificity in law. We did that because our original founder was a lawyer. He had some aspirational objectives to transform law and how they operate. So when we look in the marketplace for legal billing apps, there's three areas that we sort of defined our area. One is we're financially focused. So we have no intention to be a practice management tool. We really want to be great at something, and being narrowly focused in the finance, and we call ourselves now the financial operating system for the law firm. And it's really helping that law firm manage the full life cycle of its clients. We just, as a heads up, probably 10% to 12% of our client base is non-law, and we're picking up more accounting firms, not because we're chasing them, just because there's so much similarity between an accounting firm and a law firm. And we have a few other professional services firms as well, landscaping company, private investigative company. And there's a variant of LeanLaw that is non-law. The second thing to note is how we think. There's three tenets in what we do. And every time we look at something, we think about automation, what is manual that we can automate. We think about integration, what tools are shine, and so we can integrate with them to do something that we just never will do as well as they will do. And the last is data. And data can be, sort of stagnant in a report. It can be we have a product later this year coming out live in Insights. And then, of course, down the road, we're optimistic of integrating some machine learning and AI to get smarter with data. So those are the three tenets. And the biggest integration we've ever done is with Intuit and QuickBooks. Early on, we decided we didn't want to be an accounting platform. We felt the fidelity of the accounting had to live in one tool, meaning we needed one source of truth. And for us, that's QuickBooks. We looked at the marketplace at Xero and whatnot, and QuickBooks had the best API, meaning the technical layer that we could interact with. And it had, of course, the marketplace and of apps and the QuickBooks Pro Advisors. The third point of differentiation is that we're mid-market focused. It doesn't mean we don't have solos and what we call micros, 1 to 4 user law firms. But when we think about our future development, we're really interested in chasing mid-market firms as big as we just landed, and they come on board and go live August 1st, 120 person law firm. So that's a big firm for us. But we have solos, so it runs the gamut. We have 2 variants of our product, a Pro and a Core. Core more geared towards those more simpler, smaller offices, and a Pro more towards enterprise. So that's where we fit in the marketplace. As I talk, I really want to encourage you folks to ask questions. And you can stop me, you can pause me, and I'm fluid and can interact with whatever questions. So whether you chat it or whether you just want to raise your hand or something like that, ask questions, ask away. And you know, my goal here is to talk a little bit about LeanLaw, but more about how it can be of value to your practices. Not necessarily fully, you're not going to walk away from this meeting thinking, I know everything about LeanLaw and how to use it. Like Steve said, you know, you got to dig in pretty deep, and sometimes you get some false starts. But, you know, we're at a really exciting stage of our business. We're crossing over $1 million in what we call ARR, annual recurring revenue. That's a huge milestone for our company to reach that. So, and we've been doubling every year of our business. So we started with nothing, and now we have some girth. We've raised some money. We're going to raise some more money. Some of the things that have frustrated folks like Sarah in terms of our slowness to react, whether it's performance of the engine or whether it's features, we're going to see over the next 24 months a tremendous increase in velocity out of our engineering team. So that's going to be in the performance of the product, but it's also going to be in more sophisticated features. And those features will come around 3 concepts: automation, integration, and data. Everything we do are through those 3 lenses. And so when we
you guys do it so well, though, like Jonathan, as far as listening to the community, I have to say, like,
A big part of it.
It's a huge part, and why he kind of picked on me for a minute, because I'm like, hey, what about this? What about that one? Because there's so much that the firms need that are custom and tailored. So we constantly use those words with them, because no product is one size fits all. But if it's a good enough ask, if it's a worthy of an ask that makes sense, they listen. Jonathan listens and really tries to articulate what the value is so that it makes sense for their product to get enhanced too. So we love that so much about our partnership.
Absolutely, Sarah, because I have a client that I brought into LeanLaw that is, and they're a whole different firm. They're not a legal law. They're using the product because they had that need for the words and all that for the billing. But some of their asks, I just flat out told them, I said, look, I can bring that to the table, but they're building this for law firms. You are using it because it's a good tool for you, but they're not going to build out for your own specific niche, because that's not, you know, you're not a law firm. So you have to, and then sometimes we've had some kind of crazy requests. It's like, okay, and usually it comes in the side of reporting, because the attorneys have some really crazy compensation plan. And it's like, all right, it can be sort of built, but what you guys do, like they have, oh, this is how it is. Oh, but the exception is this person, da. It's like, all right, when you start putting the exceptions in, there's not gonna be anything other than a manual process. And that usually falls into that.
But I will say the but is twofold. And Joanne asked a question, which I'll get to in a second.
And Elke has her hand up when she's ready.
You know, about 80% of what every law firm does is fairly universal. It's the last 20% of a law firm that can get unique. And the negotiation and the conversation is about, well, why does that need to be unique? Are you stuck in sort of old institutional ways because you did it a certain way? And can we break that? B, can we reframe what it is that you're doing? And you'll get the similar outcome, but we can automate some pieces. Or B, if it's that important, maybe we could write a feature, or maybe you can do something, maybe we can give you something that you can put into another tool like Excel or something like that. that will automate it. So there's always an opportunity for a conversation. And to Linda's point, no, we can't do everything for everybody, but I think she can attest that we listen to everybody and we try to pull out what is meaningful to the crowd, but still of value to that client. And see if we can do it. And we partnered with a firm in Texas where we fully automated a process that was manual. And when we were testing it, our automated process was far more accurate than their manual process. And it wasn't just the automation that we did, it was the data transparency for the attorneys, meaning that we were able to give them visual information about their compensation in real time with a granular level of detail. Joanne, you asked the question, how do you get to, if you don't have a client using LeanLaw, how do you get the best way to thoroughly learn the product? I'm going to put a link here that a colleague of mine just put up. We have something called, I was going to pitch this at the end, but this is as good of a time as now, and then I'll speak to that. And then I'm going to get to the product because I don't want to do this. I don't want to miss the opportunity to show the product. I think that the accounting community and bookkeepers in general are overly, and this is going to sound a little grandiose, but I've been doing this for a long time, working directly with accounting partners. You can never know a product thoroughly until you've used it live with a client 3 times. It's just the bottom line. And I say 3 times, 3 different clients. There is a certain level of foundation that you can get to trust the recommendation of a product, whether you do it through social proof, whether you do it through a trusted advisor by Linda, or whether you do it through your own vetting. But at the end of the day, you never really know if a software solution is going to work for a firm until you put it in there. And it's your job to condition the client to understand there might be some bumps in the road. So I think sometimes folks get a little too, how do I say it, too onerous on the idea that they have to perfectly understand a product before they can use it with a client. I will say that we have something called the LeanLaw Accounting Pro program. As I started the conversation, I was going to mention it. In 2017-18, I realized that the accounting community was really a client and a customer, not just someone that was sort of there. And we elevated them to say that we have 2 customers, the law firm and the accounting community. We look to the accounting community for 3 basic tenets: collaboration, community, and education. What they give to us is proof and validation that when we make a decision on workflows that affect the accounting, that they're right. And these 2 women can attest to that. We don't do anything without vetting it with the group that says, are we making a decision? So we have a formal program, kind of like QuickBooks Pro Advisors. It was crappy for many years. And because we didn't have any formalization in running it. I was doing it sort of part-time and we didn't have good people. A marketing manager took over it and we revamped it over the last 6 months, and the revamp was bumpy, but the end result is we have 3 really top-notch programs that run the program. We use a LMS called Thinktastic. I think it's called Thintistic or Thintastic, but a really strong LMS that has a whole curriculum to get through 3 levels of content learning. We have a community that's vibrant in something called the Mighty Network. So it's not a Facebook group, but it's a private network. We have office hours once a week with our onboarding specialist. We're bringing other people in to do classes on growing your practice and working with law firms. So there's a whole community aspect there. And then there's a 3rd program, which I can't remember which is running it, but those are the 2 big pieces. The point is when we think about that program, it's really about creating community, collaborating. What I mean collaborating is if you have a law firm client, we want to back you. We want to help you be successful at that firm, whether that's communicating the value of LeanLaw, whether that's onboarding the client, or whether that's escalating a problem. I mean, Linda said to me in Slack, Thursday, I have a problem with my client. And Friday morning, I wrote that client and said, I'm on it. So she had a direct line to me to go deal with that. And that's the way we are. If we are not perfect as a company, but we recover well. And I can tell you that for a fact. No company is perfect. It's just how you recover. And what I mean by recover is how accountable and what's your follow through in rectifying whatever the solution is. Any questions before I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the product?
Carice.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna just mention, because I had started the LeanLaw, the certificate training, and I kind of fell away for a little bit just because I couldn't kind of like finish it up for just other reasons. But you were talking about the changes that had occurred. So if I were to go and log into my account now, could I pick up where I left off, or is it a complete revamp of?
It was a complete revamp. So there's that link I just sent in. I would just
Okay.
click that link. And I think
Okay.
even if you go through quickly some content that you've been there before, I think it will be of value because I think it's smarter than it was before.
Okay.
It's not perfect. We're a growing company. It's, one of many things that we're doing and trying to juggle, but it's much, much better run than it was. Part of it was I'm out of the way. It was all dependent on me, and I've got other things I've got to do for the company. So I've appreciated the team that's taken it over and where it's going. So I want to share my screen and show the product a little bit. Let me do that right now. And again, happy to answer any questions or anything. So everyone can see my screen, just a nod of heads.
Mhm.
So we're an anytime, anywhere program. So, we work in a cloud. It works on a Mac or a PC. It can work on a tablet. It can work on a phone, although the phone application is really meant for time entry. We're not trying to run a practice on a phone. So again, when you start thinking about this product, and we won't have time to do the entire demo, so I'm not going to focus on every nuance. The one thing I'm going to not spend a lot of time on is time entry, because I think we're fine. We do it in 3 different ways, which I'll overview quickly. But what I really want to spend time on is how do we interact with QuickBooks, number one, and really reporting. And the reason I say that is because when you think about the value of LeanLaw from the accounting community, it's your job when you come into a law firm, because there's 3 reasons a law firm is engaged you. The number one reason, one reason is it's emerging, it's creating a new firm. The second reason is they're doing something in-house that they want to take out of house. And the third reason is they have a resource and that resource fumbled the ball, right? Someone struggled, not doing it well, and they want to have you come in and fix it. So I think one of the first and most important things is to lay that technical foundation and establish what we call best practices. Many law firms have institutionalized worst practices, right? And most firms have, but law firms in particular, whether it was tethered to an individual, Colleen was doing it a certain way, and she holds everything and tight to herself, and she can't change it, whether it was tethered to a product. And so you have the opportunity when you come into law firm and establish best practices and really refine those workflows. Law firms work in just a circular pattern. There's an onboarding of a client, there's an engagement, an onboarding, the work, and a close. It's just a very clean life cycle. And there's some financial activities that happen with that. So one of I think the value adds that the law firm can do is say, how do you, thinking about every nuance of the life cycle of that client, from engagement, when we send the contract out, how do they pay their trust money and their retainer up front? How do we track hours? What's the consequences of not putting hours in time? What's the preamble to invoicing? How do we produce our invoices? What do we communicate on the invoices? Not just the narrative, but what's the value we want to present to the client from the law firm? How do we send our invoices? We're seeing a tremendous amount of movement in payments, moving away from checks, of course, and moving into e-payments, whether that's ACH or credit card, and many options for the law firms to pass those fees back on to the client to save the 3%. And then, of course, the reporting and reconciliation. And that's, I think, is really important. And you can't get good data unless you have good workflows. And one of the things, I think Linda and Sarah will attest to this, what's painful for the accounting community, especially as an outside vendor, is if you don't establish the best practices and coach them and teach them, about 60 to 90 days, sometimes about 180 days, between 90 and 100 days, you're going to get an angry phone call because someone's going to say it's not working. And they're not going to be able to really articulate it's not working. They're just going to be really emotional and mad. But when it comes down to it, it all comes back down to the best practices. Did they put the data in the right way? Are they getting the data out of the right way? So that's why the front end. So anyways, a little bit about LeanLaw. So this is the main navigational interface here on the top. I'm in one of 4 ways to track time. So this is the calendar. I actually kind of put my schedule in what I did this morning. This is just a visual representation of your day. So time trackers are fickle. They like the idea of, maybe I want it visual because I'm a visual person and I want to find gaps. I didn't put any time between 8:15 and 10. A second way of entering time is the second mindset, which is very list driven. This is a second tool that we call time entries. We also have a filtering mechanism here. When I say filtering, meaning I can filter by time, timekeeper, client, activity and task code need to be there. But the idea that I can have many ways of looking at the data as I need it. And these are all time entries that are in the system. So for me, this month playing Fred Taylor, I've done 3.5 billable hours, total 6.9, not a very impressive month. Nevertheless, that's what I've done. To create a time entry, this is fairly universal. You have the timekeeper, the date, the client, the matter, the text. It can be driven by what are called snippets. They're phrases of text that the law firm can generate. This is one of these best practices. Let's uniform how the law firm communicates to the client. Let's create a uniform set of snippets so we don't have paralegals or lawyers saying things in all sorts of strange ways that the client doesn't interpret the same task from multiple people. That's just a little example of a best practice that you can introduce to a law firm that they get really excited on. The phase 2 of this is the idea of task-based invoicing. So instead of communicating a narrative of all the detail in a long list, you can summarize and say, we did this many depositions. We did this many contract negotiations, and the detail then would be attached as an Excel file. That's kind of the next generation of that concept. Yes, Steve, you got to unmute yourself.
Back on your calendar mode, are we able to see, like if you drilled into one of those, does it have all the detail?
Yeah, I went to the gym.
Gotcha. Oh, that totally answers it right there. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so this, since we're here, I'll just kind of stop here and say this is essentially the framework of a time entry. Every time entry has the date, the timekeeper, the client, the matter. That's the lawyers think in the context of clients and matters or clients and cases. Many clients can have multiple cases, and we can pick by client, we can pick by matter. We have a narrative. I put gym class. I could have driven it by a snippet. LeanLaw has a feature that's not widely used, but internal notes. So if someone wants to tag a note on a time entry, only internally, just to say something material. The hours, we bill in tenths or quarter hours, so 6-minute or 15-minute increments. This happens to be a fixed fee matter. What that means is that lawyer negotiated a flat rate, whether it's subscriptive, $5,000 a month, and that's their fee, or whether it's a flat rate. I'm doing a will for $2,500. A unique, kind of a neat feature in LeanLaw is that sometimes when you're doing fixed fee work, something comes out of scope. And so by saying no, it's not included in the fixed fee, I'm charging my hourly rate for that fee. If I say yes, that means it's included in the fixed fee to be shown to the client on the invoice or just internally for tracking purposes. Then we have the start and stop time, and then we save that things. If we click
Jonathan, is there a way to, with a fixed fee, so if we have a client that like does fixed fee, but he's got like a bunch of hours kind of locked in, like this is what it costs, but I know the max is 10 hours, for example. Is there a way to put that in the fixed fee that once it hits the 10 hours, now you have to go and do some other engagement with somebody, or?
Sure. So yes, let me get to that in a half second.
Okay.
In the event that we have this advanced feature, this is kind of another nice feature of LeanLaw. Every user has a rate and it's tied to every matter, and every matter could have a different rate. So I'll talk a little bit about rates in a second. But the idea is that sometimes we have to override the default rate for a matter. I'm a lawyer, I'm charging you $4.25 an hour, but I'm traveling, so maybe I'll charge $2.25 an hour. So by using this advanced fee, I could change the rate for that one specific time entry, which is very useful to not have to go in and manually do it. Someone had a question, so I'm going to open up.
She wants to know, is this the core version or is it the?
No, this is everything I show is the pro, and when I hit a pro feature, I'll tell you. So far, I haven't hit any pro features. The big things about pro features are compensation tracking, leads tracking, so leads billing, which is task-based billing for electronic billing systems, and then the third is oversight and control. And what I mean by that is user permissions. We have larger firms; they need more control. Those are the three major differentiators in the product. There's some other nuances, but this is the pro feature, and it'll look a lot. Core looks a lot. It's not like core doesn't look this way. It's just some very specific things we turn off. So in the time entries, again, we do a time entry there. This is list view. You can also extract your hours to print them or export them. to ignore that QBD. That feature does not exist, and I to turn that off. Sometimes when I get on the phone with accountants, like, you work with desktop? No, we do not. So if I need to export them to Excel, I can do that as well. That's where that function is. I want to get back to, whoops, I lost my window. There it goes. I like to look at people when I'm talking because I feel like then I'm just talking to a screen. Another question came in.
No, not a question. That's me, because I just think that feature, the user permissions feature, is a game changer for a lot of mid-market firms because they need to really be finite with what can be done. And I know that feature, when I show people, they're like, wow, because even QuickBooks isn't this
This
good.
gets very granular to say,
Yeah.
for the timekeeper roles in the firm, can we turn things off? You know, we don't want them to track time for others. You know, when you get into billing, we want them to be able to view invoices, but we don't want them to draft, edit, anything else. So it allows that sort of customization for view edit functions in the product to turn it off. So timekeepers can only enter time to see everything. And that gives that granularity. And again, another value add where you as the outside professional can help them interpret, well, what do people want to see? And then use these tools to execute that on. The third way to track time is this desktop tracker. This desktop tracker is just an offline, I shouldn't say offline, it needs internet access, but it's installed onto a Mac or PC. And it allows that time tracker to not have to be web-based. So they can have this, they can park this little app on their computer and they can just quickly do a time entry. Again, same general functionality. Here's a time, do it by snippet. I did an hour. I don't really care about the start time unless I really care about that calendar view. Is it billable? And so on. I save to timesheets. That's it. They don't need to do any more work. And they'll see all the matters that they're working on with the matter they most recently interacted on top. The second tab is My Day, which shows you kind of all of the time that you've entered in a day, and then any open timers that are there. So, and you can see that 10:30 appointment that I just put in is already on my calendar. So it's that fast. We're talking directly to the server. I'm going to shift gears and get off of time entry and talk a little bit of the expenses. This is one of the first areas that you'll see direct integration with QuickBooks. So the pain point here that we wanted to solve was that accounts payable lived in QuickBooks, right? They get a bill, you book it to payable, you want to stage that, maybe that's reimbursable back to the firm. So the green items you see here are those that were entered directly in QuickBooks. That's what designates there. The non-ones that say LeanLaw were entered in LeanLaw. So think of it this way: hard costs, those that the firm expended dollars on that needed to be reimbursed on, which is typically an asset. We call it, in my version of QuickBooks, you can call it differently, is called prepaid expenses. We prepaid an expense, it sits on my balance sheet until I put it into an invoice, which moves it to, it alleviates the prepaid expense and pushes it to AR, right? That's how that sort of accounting goes. The LeanLaw ones are meant to be non-hard expenses. You know, this, like I spent some money on copying, right? So we made 10 copies and we're going to charge them 10 cents and we're going to do $1. And this is flexible that you can enter things in QuickBooks and LeanLaw, just LeanLaw, however you want to do it. So if your law firm says, I want to run everything as income on the P&L and just have it as reimbursable income, that's fine. You can run it that way. If you want it more sophisticated, to have those hard costs on your balance sheet and the soft costs on your P&L, you can do it that way as well. And that's, again, an opportunity. You come into a law firm, something's probably being handled with expenses in a clumsy way. You can interpret it. You can change the workflow, change the best practice. Many law firms essentially let go of their expenses. I'll hear this all the time. I'll just give the client, I don't really care about those expenses. It's not because he doesn't really care about that money. That lawyer doesn't have a good system to track his expenses. And he's saying, it's 3%. I don't really care. It's 5%. Well, if you're really, that's just wrong, right? That's just because you don't have a good workflow. And again, that's an opportunity. It's a question you can ask when you're interviewing a law firm. Tell me the life cycle of your expenses. It's uber critical in certain law firms, like contingency firms, those that do what they call plaintiff's work. They go in and get clients and they take the onerous of the expense of the process, that meaning an expert witness, charts for a trial, they take the cost on, and it's something they need to recoup once the settlement happens. So for contingent firms, expense management is an absolutely huge function, and there's layers to it. They take debt, so they may go take a line of credit against the opportunity of a contingent matter. The expense load is something you have to show to the bank. So there's lots of different things where the expenses are not just about reimbursement. They could be a cost center for the client. I'll show you in a second some real time, but entering expense in LeanLaw is super easy. You just do an expense interface. I think what's more interesting is in QuickBooks. So in here, I'm just going to say new bill.
And this is where we use Dext. So we would have, if you're working with a mid-market firm, you've got the admin, they get the bills, they get the receipts, they upload them to Dext, you backcode them, they push into QuickBooks, then they end up in LeanLaw without having to do anything. So you get the accuracy of the automation because it's actually reading the reference number, it's reading, you just have to tell it what it's supposed to be, add the matter, and it just saves the client. And this is one of the things when you're doing that engagement with the attorneys, that's a selling feature, because you're going to say, oh, how do you do it now? And when you ask, that's the part when you have that call, when you're talking to the client, you start to extract those details. The clients, you would be amazed. Oh, well, Mary gets the mail and opens it up and then gives it to Susie, who types it all in. You're going to come in and go, this is what we do for you. And they're like, they don't even know this stuff exists. So when you start to,
Linda, to your point, how many of them honestly are like, oh, I don't know, the paralegal has all of that. You just
always.
Yeah. I
Oh,
know many of you have been in that song and dance.
I caution you on this though. Phase one of it is just to sort of institute a LeanLaw-like process. Phase two of it, you can start to then add bill.com. Some firms are able to, or whomever, whatever, you can add another layer of automation. But what I'm saying is some firms can't take that all at once and need it in a phased approach. And some firms can do it in an all-in-one, and it depends on the savviness of the culture of the firm. But really what you're saying is there might be other tools in QuickBooks that can help facilitate a process. And that works well with LeanLaw because, again, something that comes into LeanLaw, we tag it. And I want to make a point here. When I see these clients, all of these clients were entered into LeanLaw and then pushed to QuickBooks in an automated way. So you don't have to manually manage clients between the two different platforms. So if I click Jackie's matter here and click save, you can go and save that. And I just want to make one note is that we can do classing here, and LeanLaw is doing classing on the revenue side in a fully automated way. So if you want to use classing as a function of reporting for compensation or P&L or some other functionality, we support classing. We also are supporting custom form fields. We've worked directly with Intuit, and we were one of the first companies. I failed to mention we're premier app in the Intuit ecosystem. So they're focused on the niche of law with their QuickBooks Online Advanced and chose LeanLaw as the preferred app to be the law tool for QuickBooks Online Advanced. So we had access to some code specific to custom form fields that no one else had, and we lit it up in our product. We have a phase two of that happening probably later this year. But I don't want to get into that. So when I click save and close, and I head back to LeanLaw, and I just go in and say, show me time period today, and that's going to refresh it. You'll see that is already here. So I wrote today, you can see law firm 3/7/23. So meaning I entered in QuickBooks. When I entered it in QuickBooks, let me just make sure we're clear about that.
And when you go back to LeanLaw, I want to point something out there.
I'll be there in 1 second. What
Yeah.
I wanted to, because this is what LeanLaw is paying attention to. When we see that account, that's the balance sheet account that we said, hey, we're going to book hard costs to. And you can run a report on it and reconcile it out and do all the things you want to do it. That's how LeanLaw found, hey, this one should come over. Go ahead, Sarah, you wanted to say something?
Two things that's really cool. If you go back one more screen,
what do you mean?
on just expenses, they've got the unassigned expenses. So this happens to us.
Yeah, let me go back.
Yeah, we've got.
So what she's saying, yeah, go ahead and say
Yeah,
it.
so people will this happens in real life all the time.
yes.
Well, what is all this about? Well, you entered an expense and you didn't tell it where to go. It has no home. So this helps us on our side to say, okay, where are all these unallocated pieces that we're looking for, right? Like you're telling me you need more expenses on the bill, but they're not assigned. So this is one feature that I do appreciate and love, because it holds a bit of accountability on the flip side when we're talking with the workflow processes. The other thing too is important to note is when you're entering it from whatever starting point, if you're entering it from the QuickBooks side, and Linda's got me really well trained on this, that description, it becomes a workflow process with dialogue on like, what is it that you want to show up on the bill? Do you want it to be a memo description when you're entering it in QuickBooks to pull it into LeanLaw? What is it that you want that expense to show up as? And some people are very particular. Some people have like detailed descriptions. And there are some additional cool features that we can, help.
Snippets. I mean,
Snippets that we can help you with.
snippets are so powerful. And I often wonder how much they're actually used at the law firms. But when they come to us with wanting to move to automation, we usually get the millennial that's in the partnership, and he's like, we want to move to the cloud. When you get them in that place, you've got that person you're speaking with mentioning the snippets, because that is a powerful piece that if you can get it generalized and it also provides uniformity in the firm if you can get these snippets in. And one thing about classes before you go too far is that to note that we've found that a lot of times, we work with the law firm and we have the other person that's kind of handling everything on their side, and then they'll add a user. If they use classes, they have to classify the user, or they got to go back and do a little bit of cleanup work, and that gets forgotten. Like they added, like a new person comes in, a new attorney, and we use the class for the attorney, and then they forget. It hasn't happened now for 6 months, and they forget when they invite the user, but they forget to add the class, and then all of a sudden you're running a class report, and there's this data that's in undefined, and you have to go back into the reclass tool to fix it. Remembering that step is important, to add the class. If you are using classes and you are using the users, you add the class there.
Well, I think there's opportunity, I guess, in the evolution of how we're going to help a firm do well in the programs and develop a streamlined work process.
We've been writing them out.
So many touch points in there. And I think the nice thing is the one thing I breathe easy on is like, okay, LeanLaw will do the training with the attorneys.
Yes.
You don't have to think.
That's another piece too. Yes. You get the law firm there and you get them to that point. LeanLaw handles that piece of it. So we just work with the accountant or the bookkeeper on staff, or the admin that's a bookkeeper. That's where we work. But LeanLaw handles training.
So Julie has a great question too on that topic.
I want to get, hold on, I got a lot to cover, so I want to get it. Julie asked, is there any additional training provided on new subscription? Everything from DIY to fully white gloves, coaching hand in hand, training, as they mentioned, for the law firm. We kind of break the training down into two different ways. Training for the law firm, and we do it both in the general law firm from time tracking and getting sort of acclimated to the program, and then a second training specific to the lawyers to understand how the preamble to invoicing and reporting. We also do one-on-one coaching with the sort of operators of the firm on facilitating the invoicing workflow. We don't do accounting training, so we rely on the accounting community to do that. And then of course, reporting. So yes, training can be a value add that you can purchase. It can be DIY. And it's something we do every day. I want to make 2 points. They were talking about classing, and I just kind of want to show you, this is a really bad class report because I don't have the bottom side of the expenses there, but you can begin to see with classing in LeanLaw, you can take principal attorneys and actually start to run full P&Ls for them in QuickBooks. So you can assign classing on the expense side directly in QuickBooks. And then in LeanLaw, you're going to get the full revenue side. So you can see Fred's done $38,000 of the revenue on that side. His expenses weren't really articulated, but you can make assertions on overhead and then any incremental expenses to do that. And that's becomes very powerful now. I want to make a note about expenses before I move on off of it, which is the final thing. When we think about expenses and we saw that automation, I spoke to it on the automation of the operator side. We took something that maybe they did manually, the paralegals were doing, and we took it right from the bill in QuickBooks into LeanLaw. But now let's think about it from the lawyer's perspective. When she's looking at her practice, and I just pulled up this ready to bill, this is essentially what WIP means, work in progress. I saw immediately on Jackie's client that she's got $4,500 in expenses sitting in it. She also has a receivable balance of $8,000. She made a last payment in May, and she's got $5,600 in trust. You can see the real-time nature of that $4,500 that I booked. Why is that important? Because Jackie's got to make decisions about, I'm sorry, not Jackie. The attorney's got to make decisions about how she's going to handle this rat matter. Is she going to continue to do more work? Is she going to make a phone call to Jackie and say, hey, I need to get paid? And this gives you the data transparency that it's not just sitting in some expense bucket, it's immediately visible to the client, and it's visible across all of their open matters. So here we see the value of the hours to be billed, the expenses, any fees that are billed, and of course that accounting data. And this is another place where we're pulling in live QuickBooks data. That last payment and that AR balance is live in QuickBooks. That's the source of truth. We're just putting it in the context of the lawyer's day-to-day so they understand it. Really, really important. I only got 15 minutes left. So what do you guys want to hear more about? Reporting or invoicing?
Nicole, do you want reporting?
Julie's reporting. I had a feeling
Yeah.
reporting might be the,
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk
Yeah.
more about invoicing. So I'm just going to say really quick with invoicing.
yeah,
There's just so you know, we have a sort of batch way of handling invoicing. This is all the time that's ready to build. You can then create drafts. The attorneys can electronically go in and interact with drafts, or they can do it in PDF and someone can do it for them. Once they're approved, that communicates to the billing clerk, hey, that's ready to be delivered. LeanLaw does not deliver the invoice. We push it to QuickBooks. That's where it becomes a live invoice. So if I go in here and say, this probably will work, say submit to QuickBooks, that invoice now moves out of the approved, it broke because there's something broken, it's a demo account, but that moves out into now a live invoice in QuickBooks. What I mean by live invoice in QuickBooks is we didn't like the workflow in QuickBooks to deliver invoices. It's just difficult because some are email, some are paper. So we said, hey, there's some tools here. Show me only the invoices that are not paid ready. Let me just see if I can broaden that. I don't have good data. I'm sorry. Let me get rid of this and see if I can. Oh, no, I don't have any good ones. I'm sorry. But we can see those that are ready to be billed by email or those that are ready to be billed by print. What that means is in batch, I could, for those that need to be electronically delivered, I can just say email, and that will tell QuickBooks to email all of those invoices. And if you have automated reminders set up and all those things, that'll happen as well. So it just gives you a batch tool to do that. We also have the ability to go in and look at all trust accounts. Whoops, let's look at all with trust, see if I have there. So here's some things that have trust activity. Someone has a question, I'll get to it in just a second. This allows you in batch to handle the workflow around paying something from trust. And that handles all of the accounting side on the QuickBooks side. So that's two transactions, a check being cut out of the trust account, making sure that the asset side goes down and the liability side goes down, and then the opposite side of the transaction paying the invoice. So we're making a payment on the invoice and we do that live. And I'm covering this very quickly. What do trust transactions look like in QuickBooks? Can you show an example of trust funds being transferred to pay an invoice? Great question, Jane. If I do that, that's going to take away from reporting because we have an hour, right, Linda?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, we can definitely do another deep dive here, not with you, but we could take them through more of a, we won't drag you into it again, but we can take you guys in. And yes, actually LeanLaw relies, we have, Emery Wagner will be coming from Gravity to do a demo on how that works with LeanLaw as well.
yeah.
For the trust
Let me
side.
I can do it really quickly and give you a high level overview of how the trust accounting is happening. So when we establish an account, we of course identify, and we can support more than one trust account, the asset side of a trust. So you can say I have an Ohio trust account and an escrow account. On the liability side, and this is all automated with LeanLaw, we tether that. All of these sub accounts essentially are your clients. And we can support both matter level, client level trust accounting or matter level. So Hessington has two matters. That client said, hey, we have to handle everything from the accounting perspective at the matter level. Coastal, although they have 4 matters, has 4 different matters. It's one trust account. When we look at Jackie's register, you can go back in time from the very beginning on 10/3/20 and say, we deposited. So in LeanLaw, we said, hey, let's receive, we either requested trust or we did a deposit to trust. The QuickBooks side of that ends up in establishing the sub account, increasing that liability in the sub account, and either putting that money into deposited funds or the trust bank account. And if I click into this and edit into this, see if I can see it, you can see where the debits and credits. We did, in this instance, I put it to undeposited funds on the debit side, and the credit side is the liability. So this is fully automated on that. Then you can do a deposit in QuickBooks to do it. When I paid an invoice for trust, you see this side of it. Again, using this function, pay invoice from trust, or this pay invoice from trust, that flips over here, and I'm going fast, and wrote a check, decreasing the liability. I get my debits and credits. It cites in the description in an automated way that we're paying an invoice. That's really important from a compliance perspective. And it writes that check and you'll see the money coming out of the check, IELTA checking account there. On the flip side, if I went to invoice 2583, you'd see a payment on that invoice. And that payment was made from LeanLaw. And that'll show up in your normal AR reports. So all of that workflow is facilitated. The end result, and I'm going fast because we're going to run out of time, is you can see this type of a report for the law firm. And this is super important. Law firm does not want to be in QuickBooks, and you do not want them in QuickBooks. And that lawyer who was thinking about her practice, she might just say, where are my clients in their trust account? So when I see here, I see all of my clients. I see all of the live trust balances. Those will match up and are being sourced from QuickBooks. I can see any type of WIP that I have outstanding, meaning work in progress. So it's really helpful for the client to see, hey, I've got 40K in WIP and 41,000 in trust, meaning 100% of my WIP is covered by trust, right? And the inverse is this Greg Stein matter or Sten matter. He's got 4% covered. That might be problematic. That might be a decision point for an attorney, whether they see it themselves or you see it as an opportunity to bring it to their attention. If they want to see this kind of what's going on, I showed you Jackie's trust account. You can see that $3,500. That's the same data. So let me just go back and explain that. This is Jackie's trust account. There's that 35, 49, 3,000. QuickBooks view, all facilitated via workflow from LeanLaw. Lawyer's view, same data, 4,000. It's the same data, 35, 495, 3,000. And all of this language for compliance was all driven by LeanLaw's workflow. So again, automation, how do we automate the receiving of trust and paying invoices? Integration, how do we integrate it smartly with QuickBooks? Reporting, how do we communicate it both to the law firm or quickly print that for the client so they can, boom, send that over. There's that ledger that you want that does that. That's a compliance, that's a trust issue with the client. There's many facets as to why that's important.
And Jonathan, can you go to the trust tab, which just to show them where we can show the three-way is there?
Yeah,
trust-
thank you, Linda. There's
Yeah.
that. and I
If
wanna
you go
look
to
at the
billing
balance
and
sheet.
then expose. the
Oh,
trust
yeah.
tab.
So she's asking me to go to here.
So
this
when
is
your
part-
client, you want to know about if the trust is balanced, as you can see, this one's not, they've got the.
So you can see how messy this is. Like, so this
Yeah,
is
look
like
at down.
red,
Yeah.
super red flag. What this means is LeanLaw seeing the bank balance is 381,000. It's seeing the ledger of liabilities at 402,000. So those are out of whack. And then it's seeing the total client balances at 190. And then the question becomes why? This
Why?
is
And
the
this is-
demo account. It's not reconciled. People ask me to do really goofy things in a demo. So you see that. You
My
see
demo is the
something.
same
But
way.
what's really important, this happens to be clickable. This is what it fundamentally comes down to. When I click this and go to the liability balance in QuickBooks,
It brings up the report.
this goes in right in the report and I can see all of the ledgers. And all I have to do is go in here. So I'm just navigating one screen and say, show me last month and run that report. And this is the foundation for the third piece of reconciliation, three-way reconciliation, bank statement to QuickBooks ledger 1 and 2. This says, hey, are those two in alignment? The second is, did we put the right money in the right buckets, right? Did we take Linda's money and mistakenly put it in Sarah's money? And that's the compliance piece that you want to be cautious about. And that's where our automation fixes this. And that's where you can see it and do your reconciliation. So I can see, here's the activity for this month with that client. Here's the activity with this client. You can see it all clearly articulated if you use our workflows. And that's a critical compliance feature.
If the attorney's using LeanLaw, which is what we want, we don't want them in QuickBooks. If they use LeanLaw, they can't take more money out of the trust than's there, right? So that's a
Yeah.
safety feature too. And that one screen showing those three balances gives all the clarity you need to try to figure it out. Also, if you go back to that, Jonathan, there's a whole column for receivables. So when the attorney's like, well, I have to go into QuickBooks to see receivables. No, it's in LeanLaw. So they have that way of seeing when you go to billing in that. It's just really helpful for the clients. Just keep them in LeanLaw.
So there's two, I only have 5 minutes left, and I'm happy to come back if you invite me, but I just kind of want to show off a few things really quickly about reporting.
Mhm.
And you've got to think about reporting as both leading information, which is WIP, like what do I need to bill? Where do I trend on that? And then of course, lagging information, what did I bill? Lag information is really about what am I going to earn? Leading information is like, where's my practice and where, what's my potential of earning? So we recently changed it to break it down by how you might be looking at this. And I think it's okay. I don't think it's great, but it's better than it was in terms of our data visualization. I just want to point out 2 quick points. One is we've just recently introduced this client page. So a lawyer might ask the question, what's happening with this client? And they're intuitively will click the client. So I click clients. I'm in this coastal motor client, which has 4 matters. And you can see here. And the first thing we show them is what's unbilled. We can see the users who contributed. We can see the any expenses load, the fixed fees, and the total WIP. Super important. We marry that with how much AR there is, trust account, and when the last payment. So we're getting a snapshot, and then we have specific reports for this client. If they want to see the billing activity, they can actually see the live billing activity and access those invoices by clicking that number, that invoice number. And we can, I can actually include trust activity as well. So we can see the full lens of the activity, or we can just see the high level overview at the client level. If I go into a specific matter, I can do that same invoice, but now I'm looking at the lens of that one subset of the overall client, same billing activity. And we get into rates. I don't have time to do that. So that's one way a client can understand what financially is happening with their client. The second is reports. And the report I just want to start is show just to kind of show a little bit about what this is, because it's one of the most critical features for law firm is revenue by attorney. So attorneys can earn money objectively and subjectively. Objectively meaning they have set rules that said if I bring client in, they call it origination, I get a certain percentage. If I'm the responsible attorney, I get a certain percentage. So they have some very explicit rules. Or subjectively, hey, some committee might say, Sarah, we're going to give you a bonus of X%. And there's not, it's a bit of a black box. But those firms that do what you call eat what you kill, which is based off the model called Hale and Dorr. That was a law firm in Boston, I think in the 60s, that developed this model, which said there is a finder, originator, a minder, the responsible, and a grinder, the people who worked on it, and all contribute to a matter. So when I look at Fred can see that he, for this period this year, has billed $169,000. He has collected the magic number collected. Just because you bill it doesn't mean you earn it. Collected is where you earn it. He's collected $37,000. His share of that 37 was 28. Why is it not 37? Because someone else may have originated the work, or the firm might take some money. He then originated an additional $4,800 to equal his payment of 33. That means what Fred expects to earn from the company. This is uber critical to understand compensation tracking for law firms. It's uber critical to set up the best practices with it. And it's uber critical to be communicating this and making sure the fidelity of the information. It's the #1 conversation we have with law firms. So when I drill into this, and this is about data transparency, Fred can see by client and or by matter, all of where the money's coming from. And if I click into a client, let's just say this Morello, because he wants to see, he can see the 3 invoices that contributed to it and what his share of those 3 invoices. And Fred may say, hey, how did that get allocated? Well, he can just go into this little field and say, this is a new feature. Listening to a client was suffering and trying to figure out the allocation. So I say Fred, he's our CTO. He put this in this level of detail. I can't say this for certain, but I say it confidently. I don't know of another program that gives this level of minutia and this level of workflow and the idea. And these are, again, automation. We're automating this entire workflow of compensation tracking, integrating payments made in LeanLaw, payments made in QuickBooks. All of this is flowing back through QuickBooks. And then lastly, data. We're reporting on this information. This is an enormous value add for a firm to automate this. And this is what drives people to LeanLaw, this one piece of work. And so, and I'm going through this very fast, but the last thing I want to show, because we're basically out of time, this is another show of what I call data transparency. This is the receivables report. So an attorney can quickly say, for the matters that I'm responsible for, show me what I'm sitting in AR, and all of that AR is right there. So it's actionable. They don't have to ask someone from it. And these numbers match right back to QuickBooks. They're sourced from QuickBooks. So there's no fidelity of data between LeanLaw and QuickBooks. There's no shenanigans about, hey, did it sync over? It's like, it's one set of data. LeanLaw is just reading QuickBooks data. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to hold a set of data and bring that in. So I kind of raced to the back end. I'd love to come back and drill more into trust accounting, and I'd love to drill into more details about reporting. But I hope at least you got a taste of LeanLaw in terms of what we're doing. And I encourage you all to ask questions, go to our program. Linda, will you pass my information out to the group so that if they have a direct question, they can come to me?
Yes, I can do that.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Julie. She said great overview.
So there's things in there, Julie, I think I will touch on next time that I'm thinking of you specific to what you've asked before.
And this is why we have the group, because we want accountants and bookkeepers to be armed with the information that, there's thousands of apps and softwares out there to work with attorneys. If you come to the table, because we get asked that as accountants, like, well, everything's on a ledger paper, or I'm using Excel and I'm growing, where do I go to? This is, if you can show this, and if you get a mid-market firm, there's still tons of them out there in desktop clunk stuff that does not work. And then the new partner, the younger partner is like, we need to do something when we're on the cloud. You get them to come to you. You're going to be able to tell them this is what we have. And then when you start to show them, you're showing them the professionalism that your stuff, and you show them these features, and they're really wowed by it, especially the ones that have been doing things in paper or desktop.
There's two comments I want to make just to end this, is that one, there's an enormous transformation happening in law firm, and it's really two levers that are driving it. The first is boomers are aging out, even Gen X's are aging out, and millennials and Gen Ys are taking over, and they're inheriting the second problem, sort of institutionalized on-premise tools. And so you have this millennial, Gen Y, even digital native kind of people coming in and saying, are you kidding me? I got to work on this tool. And there's a tremendous amount of tension, and that's where they're kind of moving. COVID accelerated this to a certain degree. So they're saying, how do I go online? And I will say, in many instances, they want to open the lens and say, we're going to be practice management. And I think of it a lot as like a health club, is that they come in with a health club and say, I'm going to use the gym, and I can use the sauna, and I can use the machine, and I'm going to go with the trainers, and it's going to be great. And they start it and they don't really finish it, because that's not how they live and work. And so we get many clients coming from practice management tools that don't utilize the software, and they're really just using it for timekeeping and billing. Mm-hmm. So you really want to ask that question. And then the second thing, with larger mid-market firms, they want very specialized tools to do specialized things. So they're not necessarily looking for an all-in-one tool that they think can do everything because of the diversity of their practice. So that's how that conversation kind of happens when people say, well, what about Clio? And you really want to say, well, how are you using practice management? Because Clio is probably 40% more than us on their product that has practice management. Yeah. And then you want to say, is that value? Are you really going to leverage those tools across all your users? And then you can kind of look at ours. So I appreciate everyone listening and taking the time to talk to me. And Linda and Sarah, I do appreciate you guys bringing me in and your collaboration.
We appreciate you coming. This is really, it's great that you came here. And I have to tell you, from our perspective, most of the attorneys that we have that are in Clio are solo. I don't know where they're sold at in law school or something. I'm not quite sure.
They do.
It's part of that, Linda. Yeah, it's a funny thing about that. Yeah.
It's also Clio, just so you guys understand, Clio is the dominant brand. and they raised like $25 million 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And so when lawyers and law firms don't know how to search for software, they don't know how to purchase software. And they don't really understand that. So they go through some very primitive measures and search phrases. And the biggest brands, which may not always be the best fit for them, tend to be their first radar, because that's the search engine sort of marketing is what's dominating them. And so that's where really, that's why the accounting community came in, because they get brought in to either source it. That large client that I had came from an accounting firm, or they get it brought in to validate it. And when you validate it, it's like, what are the workflows? What's important to the law firm? Where are they stumbling? What are their pain points? I mean, you get that intimate conversation that a software vendor like me doesn't always get. So when you find the solution, we can be a very good fit. So anyways, I wish everyone a great weekend.
Thank you.
And thank you, Linda and Sarah. Nice seeing the
Thank
folks
you.
that I know out there. And I look forward to talking to you all in the future. And I sent that link if someone's interested in being part of our community, which doesn't take away from this community.
We can repost, Linda, the link too to
Yeah,
help.
We'll post the link and then we'll also share your contact information. And he just joined the lab, so he's in the lab now too. So if you,
No, I'm in the lab. I'm in the
Oh,
lab,
okay.
but I'm not always on Facebook. So
he's
it's
on
not the
Facebook,
best way to
guys.
find me.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to sign off. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Say hi to
you.
Chase.
Bye.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Okay, I know I have somebody else waiting for me in my next thing.
I know, but thank you, everybody. And you know, had a little bit of direct chat in the background. Anytime you have any ideas, we do have a thing inside the private space where you can add your ideas in if you want future. And Steve's been just blowing us up. He's like giving me 8,000 ideas now that we'll be going through. But yeah, so we will definitely, Sarah and I can come through, and Nicole, that come through and show some of the things in LeanLaw that didn't have time to. We can kind of focus on
Mhm.
one specific area. And we can also, now that he's not here, we can show you some tricks that we've learned, that things that don't exactly work the way we'd like to see them, that we're kind of bugging him about, but there's still some, it's like, I mean, I have things I don't like about Clio too. So I have things like I don't like about things I don't like about QuickBooks. I could go on for about 100 years right now, the way it's being like
Right
buggy
now.
and beta testing. But so we could show you like some of the things, best practices that we've learned the hard way. So we can save you the pain from it too.
Oh my God, yeah, that's a whole subject on certain
Some
software.
things. So let's just put it that way. But yeah, he's great. And they're very receptive. They're kind of like QuickBooks used to be to us as accountants. That's how they treat us. They are open to any suggestions, especially Fred. Fred's the developer. And if you say to Fred, I like this button or that button, you know, if you go on, he does a show it's not until like September that they're coming back, but Fred and Chase, they do a show to show you all the new features. And he's real receptive, like that matter button that they just showed where he clicked the matter and it exposed all the matters. I want to tell Fred, I want that to be on, and I want to click it off if I want to see the client detail. Because if they've got clients and matters, they want to see the whole page. They don't want to see it without it. So yeah, there's things like that. But
Mhm.
oh, Joanne wants to tell him.
I'm gonna run. Steve, I sent you
Please don't
what
do
I
anything.
thought is the person that I remember as my controller in a private chat, Richard
Okay, thank you.
Androwski. So, but I'll see you guys later. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, enjoy whatever you're going to do this weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.